Hey everybody, I'm Marc Dunham. Join us over the next few minutes where we make a mushroom and barley soup that'll stick to your ribs. It's super delicious and it's good for you. Right here on Play With Your Food. All right everybody, welcome back. All right, so we're going to make a real quick version of a mushroom barley soup. Now there's probably, a dozen different ways you can tackle this project, but we're going to go back to last week's episode where we talked about the par-cooked barley, and that's what I'm going to use again, because again, probably most of y'all are going to use a par-cooked product. So I want to be clear before we move forward. I've got 2 pots here. You should be able to do this in 1 pot, but for the sake of time for the video and for me not boring you to death, we're going to use 2 pots just to speed it up. All right, so in the back pot I've got barley that's already cooked. It was the 2-to-1 ratio. It's got a little bit of liquid left in it, but it's soft. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but that's kind of the point of all this, is getting in here and just trying it. So I've never made a soup with par-cooked barley, but we're going to give it a shot. All right, so I've got my front pan on, ready to go. It's cooking, or I'm sorry, heating up a little bit low to medium low. We're going to go in with a little bit of olive oil, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And I've got some minced shallots. Somebody asked me a couple of days ago when I talk about minced, kind of what the size is. A little bit smaller than an 1/8 of an inch by an 1/8, could be a 1/16 of an inch squared, so just small. All right, so in go the shallots. And I'm going to give these guys a stir. When you hear a lot of action come out of the pan like that, especially with shallots and garlic, that gives you a sign to kind of cool things down a little bit. So take the pan off of the heat if you need to, move it, just let it calm down a second. So I'm going to turn down the heat. Pan comes off of the burner for a second. It's still cooking, but it's not cooking so hot so that they don't burn. All right, so that's calmed down just a little bit. With the size of these shallots, it's not going to take long for them to start to soften up. All right, so those are starting to soften up. I've got some cremini mushrooms. You can use button mushrooms. Button mushrooms don't have a whole lot of flavor. Cremini mushrooms have a little bit more flavor. If you want even more flavor, pick a wild mushroom. And if you want a whole lot more flavor, you can make a mushroom stock, which we'll talk about here in a second. All right, so I'm going to get, I don't know, this much mushrooms in so it doesn't crowd the pan. That was probably about a cup, cup and a half. All right, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I guess I mean a little bit. Looks like I didn't pack quite enough pepper here. Okay. Mushrooms you don't want to cook over too high of heat, so low to medium-low heat is good for mushrooms. If you want to get a crispy exterior, then maybe a little bit higher, but if you go too high with mushrooms, in my experience, or at least in my preference, they get too chewy and rubbery. I know I'm going to have some people out there disagreeing, and that's fine. Okay, so these are in the pan. They're going to sweat down a little bit. I'm going to let these cook just a couple of minutes. Let's go back, talk about the barley here, and I'm going to try to tilt this up so you guys can see it without burning myself. All right, so we've got the barley in here, and I had about a cup of barley. So I added 2 cups of water, a pinch of salt, simmered it as per the directions for about 10 minutes, and there's still a little bit of liquid in there. So if you were doing this step by step without having cooked the barley separate, you would proceed with this step with the mushrooms here. And these guys will start to soften up a little bit. And again, I would cook these for probably another 4 or 5 minutes, but in the effort to speed this up, I'm going to go in with a little bit of wine. The wine is going to add an acidic component to the overall soup. All right, so that cooled down the pan a little bit. I'm going to adjust the heat. That's going to come up to a simmer. You want to let the wine reduce just a touch, and what that means is basically just cooking off the alcohol so that you don't have that alcohol flavor left in the soup because it's not very tasty. That's coming up to a simmer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go in this pot with the barley. And here's the guessing game now, since I've never done this, is basically how much water we're going to have to add to this to make it a soup. If you've got a recipe, then that's fine. But the point is, if you don't have a recipe, you just got to kind of use a little bit of common sense. So Turn down the flame. I'm going to add water. If you want to use vegetable stock, if you want to use chicken stock, that's fine. If you're concerned about it being vegetarian, water or vegetable stock works fine. All right, consistency-wise, that looks pretty good for me for soup. So I'm going to turn this back up. It's going to come up to a simmer. I'm going to chop some rosemary real quick. Thank you, honey, for the new knife. You can use, I really like thyme also with mushrooms. It's pretty delicious, but rosemary will work. Any kind of more wintry herb that's a little bit firmer will give this soup a little more flavor. You don't need that much rosemary. Same with thyme, because they're both pretty aggressive in flavor. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I know I'm going to have to add a little more salt. And I know I'm going to have to add a little more pepper. Okay, this is going to come up to a simmer, and basically it's done in terms of cooking because the mushrooms are soft, the barley's soft. Cooking it longer really isn't going to do a whole lot for you. It's just going to make the mushrooms more soft and the barley softer and gummy and gross. So that's the good thing about this soup is once it comes up to a simmer and you taste it and it tastes good, you're done. All right, so I'm going to bring that up to a simmer. I'm going to give this broth a taste real quick. I can taste the wine, I can taste the mushrooms. If you want, again, a more aggressive mushroom flavor, I would recommend one of two things. Either making a mushroom stock, and how you can do that, if you're going to this grocery store and all they have are portobellos and creminis and white button mushrooms, buy the big portobellos. You can do something else with the mushrooms. Maybe we'll address that next time. But take the stems off, clean up the stems, put the stems into a pot with a little bit of butter and cook those down a little bit, cover it with water, and simmer that for about 45 minutes, and all of a sudden you have mushroom broth. So that mushroom broth can be used as the base for this soup. Another way to do it is to buy dried mushrooms from the store, cover those with water, simmer it for about 10 or 15 minutes, you have mushroom broth. If you don't want to do either one of those, you can buy mushroom broth, but that'll give you a more aggressive mushroom flavor. If you're not so interested in that, just use water or vegetable stock. Okay. That has come up to a simmer. I'm going to taste it one more time for salt content. Maybe just a touch more. That's it. That was quick, super easy, and like I said, it's delicious to you. This kind of soup will stick to your ribs too. Nice, full barley flavor. It's really pretty too. I like the way barley looks. It's got that unique kind of white blend and then all of a sudden that white streak or that dark streak down the middle of the grain. And that's it, mushroom and barley soup in about 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure you join us next week where we get together and cook some more recipes.